lovesick blind. Why do I climb these heights for you? Twisted news always gets my shit confused. What's a man have to prove? Do I have to walk the night for you? Every mountain I've climbed, there's a valley low. For every highway I ride, there's a rocky road. She's got me beat, she's got me broken, right down to my soul. Drunk and young, I asked to walk you home, but an aloof response had me on my own without you. I stumble on, all alone, with DMVs. Where are you gone? On repeat in my dome, so blue. She's got me beat, she's got me broken, right down to my soul. She's got me beat, she's got me broken, right down to my soul.
And now we got sound live.
All right, well, welcome to episode 62 of the Armchair Chirpers. Tonight we got some good news and we got some bad news. And
And we got some news.
right, we just have news, period. But
That's what we do.
yeah, it's unfortunate when things like this happen, but the Armchair Chirpers 4 is now the Armchair Chirpers 3 due to Jeff deciding it comes with heavy hearts that we have to see him go. But he's thought about it, and he's just become really busy with work, and Janet wants him at home, and we're dragging him to the Allman, to St. Mary's, to Irish games, and he just basically has decided to give it a rest and have the three of us move on. And so we're going to miss you, buddy.
We missed you already, Burrs.
Yeah, he's one of the
Peace
OGs.
out, brother.
Yeah.
And I told him straight up, you make the podcast better, but we totally respect his decision, and we love you, brother, and wish you nothing but the best. So,
Yeah, it was a great run, and we'll carry on. We'll keep this little engine that could.
On an unrelated note, if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, it's free.
yeah, it has nothing to do with Montreal's situation. So I just want to get that.
Please apply to Armchair Chirpers, care of this station.
Maybe we should hold like a contest for a fourth chirper.
Well, but you think, who's the best Canadiens fan? Talk about a classic,
Right?
tallest midget situation.
Well, he has been a good whipping post for a long time, being a Habs fan. But now that they're getting good, and him and I have talked, like they've got something with Hudson, and they're just starting to get magical again. And they got to get some solid goaltending before they go anywhere. But man, they just seem to have recaptured the imagination from the Carey Price days. Going on that miracle run during COVID.
Well, not only that, but an ultimate throwback scrap in the
bench
player in game 3, right?
Wilson and Anderson.
I tell you, man, that's old school.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll say one thing. The thing Montreal does is that playoff atmosphere in Montreal was wild.
Second to none.
Wild.
Like Toronto, and us being Leaf fans, Toronto should look at how they support their team and the passion that they have.
Yeah, there's two or three that really stand out. the old Chicago Stadium,
Right.
Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys are crazy. From
passionate.
there too.
Yeah. Boston's pretty passionate. You know, the original six, right? Like there's just nothing like going to an original six game in that rink. Now, I haven't been to Boston, but remember the old Maple Leaf Gardens? Like,
Oh,
it was just electric. But yeah, it's one of those things, right? Where
Life happens, right?
life happens.
So,
He's thought about it. This isn't like a knee-jerk reaction, and like I said, you know, we're gonna miss you, buddy, and you know, if nothing else, the show must go on. So
That it must.
get active on socials and let Jeff know how much you enjoyed, how much you enjoyed him on the show and his insight and
absolutely.
and that classic 1950s radio voice of his,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and you know, he's still looking forward to having guys in his chair. He's still the official barber of the Armchair Chirper, so feel free when you're sitting in his chair to keep talking. So that's part of the reason why him and Les came up with the idea, right? Guy sitting in his chairs talking hockey, and he's like, "Why don't I go on a podcast?" And
Last one for a haircut?
I get one every couple months.
Why would you
Yeah.
do that? Special
More,
discount.
it's more of a shave.
right? So, hey, I know exactly what he's talking about. So
Fair enough.
But yeah, so going forward, we want to give a big shout out to Reboot Repair, Stratford's best computer support and services, personalized IT solutions, hardware, software repairs, on-site and business services. Reboot Repair, 155 Erie Street. So
The guys that make this happen.
yeah, we wouldn't be doing this without those guys. Those guys, Cam and Dylan, can't say enough about you guys. We've actually had guys coming in tonight wanting to talk to them, and we've had to shoo them away saying, "Get out of here, it's podcast night." So,
Yeah. Lady comes in, can you fix my laptop? Heck no.
not tonight.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's get right into it.
start
Brian,
with the Irish.
Sorry, the league champion, Super Cup
Right?
champion, Stratford Fighting Irish.
it's probably going to be the last OSHL. It's going to be the last OSHL 24-25 Super Cup champions.
Yeah.
Stratford Fighting Irish. I listened to it. I was in Toronto with the wife. She was at IKEA. I sat down on a bench. I'm watching it, and there's these two goddamn homers calling the game.
Wearing Irish outfits.
We may or may not have been accused of being biased toward the home team.
Shocking.
Having said that, as I told several people, I don't even get money for that gig. All I get is swag. So I'm a volunteer. I'll say whatever the hell I want.
That's
If you
right.
don't like the way I'm doing it, find somebody cheaper.
Right?
That's right.
Exactly.
Hey, I like I said, I texted you right after the game, and I said, "Great game, both of you."
Thanks. Yeah.
Even though you're a bunch of freaking homers, but
Trey Hamilton has
Yep.
the golden pipes. He's got a real future in the industry, and who knows? Like, the announcement came out today. What should we start with? I guess we should go with the.
let's go with the championship
Let's
first.
go with the
We'll
championship.
go with the championship, and then we'll get into the other announcements
other
that's going
stuff.
on.
Okay, fair enough. So, for those of you who don't know, Game 7 was Saturday night at the Willie, and
Minus Zach Magwood.
that was the thing, is that poor Zach. He has said long ago that this was coming, a big stag and doe in Collingwood for some very close
Vegas.
friends.
Wasn't it Vegas?
No. The
Collingwood.
rumor went out that he was in Vegas, and that it became an urban legend that he was down in Vegas, and that the team took up a collection to fly him home for Friday night's Game 6 in Strathroy, and then fly him back down to Vegas.
Perfect.
Truth of the matter was he was up in Collingwood and returned there, and I believe there was a deal made between he and his significant other
Okay.
that he could bail on the Friday night festivities to go try and win it on Friday night in Strathroy. But if you don't win, and this is all just conjecture, not actual fact, I wasn't there for the conversation.
Right.
The understanding I have is that you get one chance. If you win it tonight, great, congratulations. If you don't win it tonight, it's forget about Game 7. Don't even ask me
Right.
about it. They've committed to this for a long time. but they had memory, and the memory was back in the first round of the Petrolia series where Magwood was not at Game 6. In fact, half the team wasn't at Game 6.
Right.
They had 12 skaters for Game 6 against Petrolia, and they won that game 6-4 with an empty netter. Matt Montgomery scored the winner. Having said that, Strathroy is not Petrolia. With all due respect to Petrolia, Strathroy is a team that was playing much superior and has a much superior goaltender and actually has points players. You know what I mean? Petrolia didn't have any points players.
Yeah.
So Game 6, they lost up there. They were up 2-1 after the first period.
Yeah.
Then Strathroy scored on the power play and then on a delayed penalty to take the 3-2 lead, and Stratford simply could not beat Evan DeBrouwer in the third period, even though, and I remember watching the end of it, Cole Thiessen had walked into about 15 feet on the right side and had the far side to shoot and just missed the net for the tying goal. But all things have a habit of working out, so it created Game 7. I was excited personally about it because I've never called a Game 7 before, especially one for a title. And so there was a great crowd, a boisterous crowd, somewhere just a hair under 1,000. I think there might have been a few more for Game 5. There was a little more notice for Game 5 than there was for Game 7. But still, I think it was somewhere between 800 and 900. And the one thing about Irish fans, man, especially those hardcore ones that sit behind the bench in the penalty box, those people are, I mean, if you're listening, you people are psychopaths. I love you guys, man. They are nuts. They really are. They are as ardent and boisterous a fan as I have ever hung out with at any level. And they love the chants. They love to get on the referee. They love to get on the other team. They're so excitable, and most of them have been around since day one. So I really, I wanted it for myself, for my own allegiance. I wanted it for the hockey players, but I think most of all, I wanted to win for the fans, for those ones who stuck around, because we had a nice following, and then the ownership change happened, and we had a significantly lower following. But those that stayed through all of it. Through all of the crap, through all of the drama, through all of the politics, through all of the narratives that were thrown out there during the playoffs. So a big shout out to the Stratford Fighting Irish hardcore fans. Everybody who showed up Saturday, we were totally appreciated, and we love you for it. But there are a few, and you know who you are. There's only about 300 or 400 of them, but they're there every week, and they're loud, and they contribute to the bar, and it's just a fantastic place to be. So game was a weird start, though. That was one of the weirder starts you're going to get to a Game 7, I thought. Anyways.
Yeah, and we knew going in, because like in Game 6, you had DeBrouwer standing on his head, stops 47 of 49 shots. They get to Game 7, and Stratford outshoots him again, 48-25. And you're right. It was a weird start. After the first goal, it got even weirder.
Yeah, well, the early goal by McQueen, they got caught with the wrong line out there. I mean, at that point, no Shrimp, and Buck wasn't there yet. So at that point, you got to keep your eyes on McQueen. He can't touch the puck. He can't have any space and time. And there he was, wide open on the right side.
Him and McGuffin, who had played together in
Tilsonburg. It was a nice play by McGuffin, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, McGuffin goes around the back of the net, right-hand shot.
Yeah.
Does a beautiful cross-ice seam pass, and McQueen one-times it. Like, Weir had no chance on it.
No chance at all. But again, like I said, that's when they've only got one of the big three.
Exactly.
That one, you cannot let that guy. It's kind of like a baseball situation where Barry Bonds is in the lineup, but he's got nobody around him. You can't let Barry Bonds beat you. You know what I mean? But
exactly.
But and then from that goal, it just got weird.
Yeah.
It just got flat weird where you just never know when a pane of glass is going to break in a rink. and for all of the shots, the Hendersons and the Shrimps, the guys that can shoot at 100 miles an hour, we went up there for Tilbury's Game 3 in the second round, and the game was delayed on the start because a 10-year-old kid broke the glass behind the net. And it was, I think it was Griffiths, number 11, who they were killing a penalty, and he didn't shoot it directly at the glass. He just bounced it off the glass on the way out. Like it was,
like he was just trying to get it out of his own end.
And it wasn't from the face-off.
It wasn't a heavy shot or anything.
Something ominous about that too. The last time Stratford Irish won a championship. They broke a pane of glass in Tilsonburg.
Yep. Beforehand.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So that they were 7 seconds into a power play at the time that the glass broke, and the unintended benefit, unless you believe the really wild theories about that, was that Buck was late. He had to work and was going to be late, and he was going to miss the first period. But because they broke the pane of glass, he only missed 3 minutes of the hockey game.
Yeah.
I know he's been. I heard a rumor that he was ill. Somebody deduced from the fact that there was only one water bottle with a name on it on the bench, and it was Buck's name, which is usually indicative of a guy who's fighting a bug.
That's right.
So that, again, conjecture and theory. But and he was, other than that crossbar he hit in the third period, he was pretty quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. He didn't do a whole lot. Like
He wasn't his usual.
He was not
buoyant
his usual
self.
dangerous self. McQueen definitely was.
He always is.
So the glass breaks. We get that cleaned up. And then at 14:10 of the first period, Ferreira gets got to be one of the weirdest goals you will ever see in your life. You've got Casey and who was it, Thompson, passing it back and forth in their own end, just inside their blue line. Casey passes it over to Thompson, and Thompson goes to pass it back to Casey, and Ferreira's like just doing nothing. He's standing there, and as Thompson goes to make the pass back to Casey, it hits Ferreira's skate and goes into the net.
Yeah.
Like it was the most bizarre play.
And it wasn't 4 or 6 or 8 feet. It was 30 feet.
It was like at the top of the circle.
Yeah, top of the circle.
And to Weirzy's defense, he was screened on it, but it was just Casey was standing in front of him. I watched it a couple of times because I had to go. Come on,
I've never seen a carom go in from that far out.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I had to back it up a few times to see what it went off and how it went in.
Yeah, exactly. And because the video, because you weren't even thinking of a goal being scored, it doesn't show Weir until the very last moment as the puck's going in. And you can see Casey just beside himself because he knows that he was screening Weir. But it is what it is. They're down 2-0 in a do-or-die game, and people were not feeling comfortable.
Was, 6 minutes in?
Yeah, 6 minutes into the game.
Like after that second goal, even the broadcast crew was a little doubtful. You guys were going to pull this thing
I'm not
off.
gonna lie, you know what I mean? It's just
It's the feel you get of the game, right?
I was on the radio this morning, and I said to Jamie Cottle, I said, you kind of had the feeling that maybe it's not our night.
Right.
And, especially like when you add it all together, it's like Buck was going to miss the first period, but now he only misses 3 minutes. And the odd goal goes in, and they're so hard to play against when you're behind.
Yep.
But as they have done all year long, the Fighting Irish pulled up their bootstraps and went to work. They just put their boots on and went to work. And
unbelievable. And at 5:30 left in the first period, you get Palillo, his 9th of the playoffs, from Thiessen and Murray, and it was a beautiful redirect because they win the draw, and it was interesting. They win the draw. It goes back to Thiessen. He puts it down, or Murray puts it across to Thiessen, and you've got Palillo, backdoor, right-hand shot, and Thiessen, rather than shoot it on DeBrouwer, sees that Palillo is standing there, gives him a beauty pass, and he just backdoors it. Like DeBrouwer had no chance on that first goal.
And that's not the first time that Thiessen has done that.
Right.
I can recall the goal by Brulot early in this series. Same play.
Right.
And then another left-handed shot. That was the third time I saw Thiessen make that play.
Yeah.
And what an ad he was, man. I tell you.
Oh, my God. He was... Like, I was talking to some guys that were Strathroy fans beside me up in the Chirpers lounge, and I could tell because, like, as Stratford was scoring, these two old guys weren't saying a word, and I'm going, geez, it's not hard to pick out which team you guys are cheering for, and they started laughing. And we had some good banter back and forth, but you would know if I'm not correct, but I think most, if not all, of Stratford's D played in the OHL. Did they?
All of them. When they get the top 6, they all played in the O. Now, the only difference here was Fuller wasn't there last night, and Casey played.
Right.
But he still played in OUA.
Yeah,
He played
yeah.
for Laurier for a year, and again, a former Culleton as well.
Yeah, and that's
So
what I
when-
said to these
yeah.
guys. And these guys were like, holy shit, your D's really good. And I said, yeah. I said, we probably got one of the better D's in the league.
I've said it all year long. That's the best D core in the league.
Yeah.
You know, you think about guys like Paddy McNeil playing for Strathroy.
Yeah.
Kandata plays for Elora, who is quite often called the best defenseman in the league. But as far as I'm concerned, as soon as Cole Thiessen showed up in Stratford, he was the best defenseman in the league.
Absolutely. So we get into the second period, and the Irish are buzzing, and Pekka, once again, Mr. Magic, needed him to show up. Somebody had to step up with Mags not there. Pekka gets his 8th of the playoffs from Casey and Palillo. Another backdoor pass.
Beautiful look from Casey.
Right?
There. Absolutely. He went against the grain.
Gorgeous.
And I really believe, I haven't seen the replay, but live it looked like Pekka went 5-hole and it bounced in off of DeBrouwer's left leg.
I think you could be right because he kind of swept at it.
Yep.
And you had DeBrouwer sliding over, and I think you're right. I think it did hit his inside of his left leg and then went in the net. Because
the lateral movement of DeBrouwer is something that I haven't experienced very often in my life, seeing a goalie that can go side to side in a net like that. And I don't know if that was intentional on Pekka's fault, but if you went short side there, he would have been saved.
Right.
So it kind of looked like he intentionally went 5-hole. I don't know. You'll have to ask him. I never spoke to him about that goal afterwards. He was a little busy.
I think exactly.
A little busy celebrating after the game.
I think personally, it looked like he was just trying to get it on net as he swept it. And you've got a D1 goalie. So DeBrouwer had a full Scully from Arizona State University, All-American. And I think when he was sliding over, butterflying over, he got his stick up in the air and it left the 5-hole wide open, and that's how Pekka was able to slide it through and tie the game up.
I had a real good look at that one.
Place just went nuts.
Yeah, Ray's was a bit of a buzzkill because he sends a text saying they just scored, and I'm sitting there going, they haven't scored yet.
He was 10 seconds ahead of me. Yeah, the feed is 12 to 15 seconds.
Right.
As always, I'm going, damn. Sitting in IKEA going, damn.
The place was just going crazy.
Oh, man, that really, it was so cool to see them get that first goal because the place was quiet.
Yeah.
But the first goal brought the crowd back, and you just knew they were one shot away, and they were badly outplaying them. The last 10 minutes of the first period was all Stratford. And I thought just to talk about that second period, I remember speaking to Barry Grasby after the game, and one thing we really agreed on is that was the best second period that Stratford had played, maybe in the playoffs, but certainly in the series. When you think about Game 3 and Game 5, they came out in Game 3 and they stunk, and they gave up 3 goals in 5 minutes. They came out in Game 5, and I wouldn't say they stunk, but they didn't play very well in the second period, and gave up 2 quick ones to lose the lead in Game 5. So when they went out there down a goal in Game 7, that was the real concern that I didn't really air out to anybody else. Is like their second periods have been brutal. If they want to win a championship here, they have to win this period.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They did. And so that's when we got to the second intermission, and I was talking to some folks around the rink. And, of course, the narrative from my left quite often was loud and clear, oh, these refs suck. And I went, these are probably the best refs. This is probably the best officiated game I've seen in this series. Having said that, if I said to you in September, I give you an option. It's 2-2 after 2 periods in Game 7 of the championship game. Does anything else matter before that?
Right.
Nothing else matters before that. It's simply a case of 20 minutes. Win a period, win a title.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I went down into the aisle there to talk to a couple of guys around the hockey club, and everybody was thinking the same thing. Let's go out and have some fun in this period. Let's go out and win one period for the title. One period for the title. That was the message.
So the third period, it was really unfortunate because he didn't mean to do it, but McGuffin was trying to lift the stick on the Stratford player. He misses and catches. I forget who it was that he caught in the face, though.
It might have been Montgomery.
It could be. So they end up getting a 2-minute. Stratford goes on the power play. and your game-winning goal by Pekka.
What a play by Thiessen to keep the puck in.
Unreal.
They won the draw and got the puck and flipped it up. And Thiessen is not a tall dude. You know, I've stood beside him without his skates. He's maybe 5'9", 5'10" tops. And he went up and knocked that down, got it up to Brulot.
Yep.
Who made a sweet little play between legs to get it out to Pekka, who had a free path.
He walked right in.
And I'm not going to lie, but this is true story, is that we've been kind of – Evan DeBrouwer doesn't have a weakness. But if you want to beat him, your best chance is high blocker. I mean, we've seen Magwood shoot from everywhere and score all the time, and the only times he didn't get a goal was when he got robbed by a glove hand by DeBrouwer.
Twice.
And not once, but twice.
Yes.
So, you know, we were kind of dictating the narrative over the last couple of games. Go high blocker. I mean, this guy's awesome. He doesn't have a weakness.
Yep.
He made that save earlier in the year where he used every little inch of that blade he had left on that skate right down in front of us that one
He can
night.
go side to side unbelievable. His lateral movement is unbelievable. His glove hand is unbelievable. But the one place, and again, I'm not calling it a weakness. I'm just saying the one area where he's human is high blocker. So if you get a chance, and I could see on a perfect angle from where it was, he was actually just a hair out of position. And that was actually an easy shot. He gave him a third of the net on the blocker side, and he used that. He nailed it top shelf in the corner.
But with Pekka being a right shot, he had to come across to Brouwer. Like, if it was a left shot, a lot easier because he's going directly right to the net. But being a right shot, he had to come across. I think it was LeBurge. One of the defensemen slid. So along the ice wasn't an option. You're right. Going glove was just dangerous because he's, you know, so good with the glove. And he left a lot of room there for Pekka on his blocker side. And Pekka made no mistake.
Right in the
buries it, and the crowd goes crazy. Like with 10 minutes to go in the game still.
I tell you what, those were 10 of the longest damn minutes
Weren't they?
I've ever dealt with.
And Stratford, they didn't play prevent defense, but because they were still, you know.
They did play third man high.
They did, which is smart.
And stopped activating the D by and large.
Oh, yeah, they
didn't see Beeson in their pressing or anything like that. But they were still, you know, forechecking and you know, staying reasonably aggressive. But
well, the best way to kill a leadoff is in the other team's end. But the one thing that Trey noticed before I did was the fact that Patty McNeil did not play in the third period, their best defenseman. And I didn't even notice that until late in the period. And he kind of nudged me and went, "Have you seen Patty McNeil this period?" And I went, "Now that you mention it, no, I haven't."
Right.
And he wasn't on the bench. So I don't know what happened to Patty McNeil.
Right.
We have the utmost of respect. He's their best defenseman. He's a great skater, great puck mover, great quarterback on the power play. So missing him, you know, their D-core are great on a defensive standpoint, but there aren't too many of them. Maybe Griffiths has a big clapper.
Yes.
But they aren't really defensemen who are going to generate a lot of offense.
No.
And so that really hurt them, Mr. McNeil.
100%. Then you get Murray that sealed the deal. He ends up from inside his own blue line shooting it down to the open net because they had pulled DeBrouwer by then trying to tie the game up.
And he just caused that turnover. Did it remind anybody else of the Crosby goal in the Four Nations?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Just where he took the puck away and then quick got rid of it and hit that. And I got to say, that was definitely his best game of the series, maybe of the playoffs.
I thought so too.
Justin Murray, the captain, led by example. He was in control because we know he's a fiery dude.
He is.
And he kept it in control. There was maybe one time where there was a push me, shove you after the whistle. That was really what was missing from that game. Everybody was so disciplined. They didn't want to be that guy that took the extra took the extra penalty in a post whistle scrum.
I got to give a shout out to Murray's. I think it's his uncle. His name's they call him Ace.
So where's the Red Wings?
A good old boy. He stands up in the Chirper lounge all the time, and great guy. Love you, Ace. And you're right, though. I 100% agree. Murray wasn't doing anything stupid in Game 5. McQueen checked him in Stratford's end, took the puck off him, passed it out to I can't remember if it was Buck or who it was, or Amos. They ended up scoring, but that was by far Murray's best game that I've seen him as an Irish player, not just in this series, as an Irish player. I thought he
Add
did
that
everything.
to the fact that Connor Hall played so well, and those two guys
Yeah.
together, Connor Hall's reach and his lateral motion, like he's just so hard to play
Yeah.
against. And I tell you what, in that third period, I saw something I haven't seen. I've watched Jamie McQueen play in this league for 3 years, and he went into the corner with Connor Hall, and Connor Hall manhandled him.
Yeah.
Like just threw him off the puck, grabbed it, flipped it out of the zone. And I just went, wow, because McQueen is one of the toughest guys you'll ever
Strong.
see to take off the puck.
Super strong.
He's so strong on the puck, but Hall just went in and I'll take that.
Yeah.
I threw him up against the boards and took the puck and left. And you could almost see the look on McQueen going, what just happened there?
Yeah.
Don't you know I'm Jamie McQueen? Nobody throws me off the puck, but Connor Hall did. So those guys playing together, they're just too much. Like, talk about a shutdown pair. Talk about a Keith and
Yeah.
Seabrook kind of pair. When they're both on their game, they are so hard to score on, dude. And let's face it, they got outshot 2-1.
Yes.
And they got the early goal where they made a defensive lapse, but other than that, it was a freak goal, and that's really, the only thing that really scared the hell out of you was when McQueen finally got rolling and passed it across ice, which looked almost identical to the first goal, right to Bucky, who shoots it at about 100 miles an hour, and you can, like, the crossbar after the game was still crying because it hurt so much. Like, that was it was ringing in my ears right through the headphones I had on. He hit that crossbar
Crossbar got first start of the game, didn't it?
holy mackerel. Like, it still put a dent in the boards after it hit the crossbar, man. What a shot. And then that's when the narrative changed, where I felt like, you know what? Maybe it is our night.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, it was. And I thought also, on the subject of Justin Murray, what a class act to get the cup from Commissioner Jim Hawthorne. And who did he give it to first? He gave it to Mikey.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
I saw that on the feed.
He gave it to Mikey first.
Nice.
And the crowd went nuts again.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Mikey, and he's been an inspiration for all of us. The guy's a gold medal Special Olympian, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk
He's
about
such a cool guy.
rising above. Like, they talked about all the narratives that were talked about for the Irish. You look at Mikey and go, you know what? All these challenges you're facing during this season, that's not much, is it? That's
Right.
pretty, that's pretty easy. Life's easy. When, talk about first world problems, when your biggest concern is the refereeing in the final of the Ontario Super Hockey League. Look at Mikey, and if you're not inspired, boy, you're dead.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned. And so him handing the cup directly to Mike afterwards, I thought it was just a real class act.
Yeah. And I got to give a shout out to the Strathroy team. They were so, like, I didn't know how they were going to react. Like, they could have reacted like pissed off and taking it out. LaBerge, I didn't know if he was going to act like an idiot out there. They were very classy. They were shaking hands. They were congratulating each other. Like, it was the way it should have ended.
They saluted their fans, and a lot of them came up for the
Right?
game too.
That's the best. One of the best things about hockey, though, is after these series, they all stop and shake hands.
It's
And
the only
usually
sport.
you do not have any problems in the handshake line. Once it's over, it's
Yeah.
over, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Not,
and
with men anyway. Maybe
No.
boys,
Yeah.
maybe teenagers, but not with men.
Yeah, and
Just Tim Taylor.
it's just refresh.
We're not going to mention any names, right?
Oh, geez. Yeah, he.
What was that? What was that?
Or-
Pee-wee?
It was Brownie Beans. We were like 8 or 9 years old, and Tim. I was 8 or 9. Tim's a year younger, so he's 7 or 8. And slugs Andrew Piper at Rotary final day. He goes, I don't even know why I hit him.
Kind of reminds you of Gary Fluitt back in the day.
Oh yes, yeah. We should have him on. He'd be in it. So, but yeah. So shout out to the Strathroy Jets. Classy team, classy fans. And speaking of the Jets, it wasn't long after Stratford had celebrated the cup that there was more news coming out.
Barely 24 hours when the announcement of the new league came out.
And so tell us what's going on with that.
Okay, well, there's some stuff that isn't public yet. For example, you'll notice the 4 teams that were listed, notable by their absence, was a certain team in Stratford.
Yeah.
So for the people that haven't seen it on social media, there's a new league
The
that-
Northern Premier Hockey League.
and the Metropolitan
Metropolitan
Division. And the 4 teams that have announced on social media that there's just these 4 teams are the first 4 teams to announce we're sick and tired of the
Well, 3 were sick and tired of the OSHL.
and so they've decided to join the Metropolitan Division of the Northern Premier Hockey League, the Alvinston Killer Bees, Woodstock Lakers, Tilbury Bluebirds, and the Strathroy Jets. And so tell us anything else that you know about that.
Well, there is, first of all, I was not surprised by the announcement. I knew a few weeks ago that this was going to be the swan song for the Ontario Super Hockey League. There was a podcast that came out last week with 2 guys that I have been friends with. That was quite a scathing
Synopsis.
90-minute. You know what? I'm having difficulty describing it. It was a real letting loose of a lot of frustration.
They basically vented for being muzzled the whole year from the OS.
Yes, and I can certainly relate to
HL.
that. I mean, the one incident that they never brought up that always drove me nuts was the one in Petrolia. That ugly incident in Petrolia with
Garbage cans.
Jacob Chandler
Yeah.
getting injured and garbage cans on
Right.
the ice and water bottles thrown at officials. And
And a team just going home.
That was
then a team-
Alvinston.
and then a
Yeah.
team leaving in the middle of a game with 12 minutes to go in a 2-0 hockey game that didn't have anything to do in the standings for them, but most certainly almost cost Stratford home ice advantage
Right.
in the first round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was nothing done to this team. Nothing. I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure if a Go JHL hockey coach pulls his team off the ice in the middle of a game, that is an automatic or
I think it's pretty much a 1-year suspension, 1-year ban.
So were you, I can't remember, were you on our minor midget team with Randy Morris? Were you on that
No,
year?
I wasn't on that team.
Okay, so I think I talked about it previously where here we are, we've finished the Hub League. So back then when you were playing All-Star, we were what, U18, U17, and minor midget, so U17. U15?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so back then you had 2 different playoffs. You had your Hub League and then you had your All-Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
We were in between the 2, and rather than wait, Randy thought it would be a good idea. Like, I think we were waiting for a series to end, and it was going 7 games. We swept our first series. So he wanted to get us some actual game time rather than just have us practice. We play St. Mary's. So with us being minor midget, back in the day, minor midget in St. Mary's, they combined minor and major
same as
midget.
baseball. They have one age group for Bantam and midget and all those age groups.
Right. So here we are all at 15, and St. Mary's has 15 and 16-year-olds, some farmers, some big kids. Long story short, it was an exhibition game, getting stupid, and Randy pulled us off the ice in this third period, like halfway through the third period. He said, I don't want to get any of my guys hurt or suspended for the playoffs. They suspended him for 1 year.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's back in the day. That's back in the early 80s. And I don't think there's a suspension around today that is less than it was back in those days.
Right.
So anyways, so I was on the podcast as well. There were 7 of us, and we were muzzled. We were told what we could and could not talk about. My frustration was, I don't work for the league,
Right.
and I don't care what the league has to say about what I have to say. I honestly don't. But Trey and Brad were employees of the league,
Okay.
and so out of respect for them, we accepted these
Fair.
censorship situations.
So can you say who was giving Trey and Brad directive not to talk negatively?
Well, without naming names, it was the hierarchy of the league. It came direct down from the Grand Poobahs, and so we wanted to talk about that situation. We really got in trouble for talking about the Delhi donation when Delhi
Right.
gave up their 2 best forwards and their best D-man to Elora
Right. As a loan.
for a third line player as a loan, saying, "Oh yeah, these guys are coming back." Delhi justified this trade as guys who were a problem in the room, and then turned around and said, "Oh well, we're going to get them back next year." What I think probably happened is that those three players, all good players, all with the name of Chris, strangely enough, Christian and Chris and Christian, they wanted to go to a team that had a chance to win a title. And so the trade went 3 for 1. 3 good players for 1 third-line player. A bona fide player in the league. And for some reason his name escapes me, but I don't think we need to worry about that. So we got in a lot of trouble just about talking about that. The strange thing was, that was our most popular episode. We were borderline 1,000 views from that one because we let them have it.
Right.
We roasted them, and the league had no idea that we knew about it.
Right.
I found out through my source, and I was the one actually that broke the story on any kind of media. So, we had it on the podcast recorded already, and then somebody on our podcast gave heads ups to the team saying, "We know about the donation, and you've been hit pretty hard." We couldn't hit Alora. What does Alora got to do with it? If you rape a team on a trade, how you can't get mad at the team who did that.
That's
you know what I mean?
Yep.
So
how good does that look, though, on Alora for all of the bullshit that went on with the Irish in November and Pie, and then they try and do this, and they get knocked out in the first round? Like, talk about poetic justice.
I'm not sure I cheered any harder for the Fighting Irish than I did for the Strathroy Jets in the first round of the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Pie called it. Pie said to me that he goes, they got the best goalie, and he said, they picked up McQueen from Tilsonburg, and he said, Razor, they could upset Alora, and I'm like, really? And
yeah, you knew they could, but nobody really took it seriously until the first game was won by Strathroy. And the one thing that you learn about this league over the years is you can't take regular season very seriously.
right.
Elora, in the very first year, Elora came first in the regular season and won the championship. But that was barely Senior A. There were 5 teams. Stratford was just getting started. Strathroy, their best player was Justin McIntyre, who is a good player, but he had no help. And Alveston was junk. Like, they were horrible. They had a whole bunch of guys that were just beer league players. And so, for them, that was, nice. Congratulations. But they really only had to beat Tilsonburg.
Yeah.
Year 2, it started getting a little better. But one thing we found after year 1 is that the team that came first place in the league never won the title. Tilbury came first in year 2. Stratford won the title. Stratford came first in year 3. Tilsonburg won the title. Alveston came first in year 4, and Stratford won the title. And in fact, the team that finished first in years 2, 3, and 4 didn't even get to the finals. Tilbury got put out in a reverse sweep by Tilsonburg in the semi. Stratford got put out by Alveston in 6 games.
Right.
And then Alveston got put out in the second round by Strathroy in 6 games. So the team that came first not only did not win the title, they didn't even get to the finals. And so what you've got then is an Elora team that had 0 player points. They had point players, 0 point players. They had lots of good guys, good supporting cast, but they didn't have those top guys. And
The McQueens, the Feezies, the Magwoods.
They didn't have that superstar. They had lots of good players.
Right.
And they were, pick your favorite team who had no stars but just had a whole bunch of really good players. But when the teams in the Ontario Super Hockey League got to the playoffs, and that was the whole thing with the recruiting. Like Shrimp played 6 games. Magwood played, he played half the season. Feezy played half the season. The only top stars that really played the whole season were Denemy and Tilbury and McEwen and Alveston, and the guy who led the league in scoring with Tilsonburg. I forget his name. So they were about the only 3 guys that were really top end guys.
Did McQueen play the whole year?
He played
between Tilsonburg and Strathroy.
He played most of it.
Okay.
So But then that was Strathroy's problem all year long, is that, Buck only played 12 games.
Right.
No, he only played 7 games, had 14 goals in 7 games.
Crazy.
Schremp played 6 or 7 games. McQueen was only with Strathroy for the last 8 or 9 games.
Right.
And so you never really had an idea of what Strathroy was until they got going. So when you take a player like Justin McIntyre, who, as I said, was their best player, now he's their second line center iceman. And suddenly, boom, there you have it. Same thing in Stratford. I said it many times. In year 2, when Stratford won the title, Brulot, Stokes, and Robbins were the best line in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're not even the best line on their own team.
Right.
And that's the growth of the Super Hockey League. And that's the only thing that really sucks about this whole breakdown, is that the level of hockey that got played got overshadowed by all the crappy politics, stupid stuff that went on behind the scenes. And you could say it was selfish owners, and you could say it was incompetent leadership. You can say whatever you want. But at the end of the day, the league did not gel. The Central Division being dragged into this season was a major, major flaw in the plan, in which the league was told by several people, don't do this. They're not ready. And what did you get? 6 teams in the Central Division. Uxbridge is gone a month in. Orangeville's gone before playoffs start. All right? You got Richmond Hill and Madoc, who are just kicking the living snot out of these 2 teams to get to the finals in that division. And Orangeville was kicking the snot out of those teams. Like Orangeville, like people say, what was Orangeville doing? I'll tell you what Orangeville was doing. They were winning 15-0. They won a game 17-1 against the second place team in the division. Yeah. And they're saying now, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, the Central Division voted down the crossover series, because the whole point of bringing the Central in was to have the crossover series. And the whole reason that Orangeville agreed to go to the Central, keep in mind, how close are they to Elora? 30 minutes? Yeah. They could be in the West.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Easily be in the West.
Yep.
So the whole thing was, Orangeville was thinking, what a cool series it's going to be. It's a heck of a drive to Alvinston, but what a cool series it's going to be with packed barns on both sides. All that talent.
Right.
Like, one thing a lot of people don't realize, they had 2 former NHLers, Rendell and, I got it bad with names tonight, but the Orangeville was super, super talented. And they, on paper, the Alvinston-Orangeville series would have been something that would promote the league all the way across the province. And then all of a sudden the division says, we're not doing the crossover. Oh, we're not doing best of 7s in the playoffs. We're only doing best of 3s. It became an absolute gong show. And they were told, don't bring this league in. They're not ready. This is not a slight on the member teams that were in the Central Division or the players that played for them. They simply weren't ready to play at this level.
Right.
I mean, they weren't good enough to beat Delhi, and Delhi didn't even make the playoffs.
Right.
You know what I mean? They weren't good enough to beat Dunnville, and Dunnville got pumped and swept in the first round by Alvinston. So imagine how bad Orangeville was going to beat them when they were really serious about it in the playoffs. So you're going to bring all these people in, ask them to pay $15 or whatever dollars, and you've got a 15-minute hockey game because it's already 5-0 after 15 minutes, and everybody's leaving after the second because it's 12-0.
Well, I found it interesting. I was talking to these 2 old boys during the game, like I said, and they had watched a lot of games. And I said to them, are you guys surprised that Alvinston isn't around? And they both of them looked me in the eye, and they said no. They said they're a regular season team. And I said, what do you mean by that? And they said, in the playoffs, and I've never met him. I don't know him. He had a great series against Stratford last year, so this is why I was surprised with these 2 guys telling me this. They said that the tougher the games got, the quieter Feezy got. They said McEwen was great, but they said there was a rift between Feezy and McEwen. I don't know if that's true or not. They said there were.
They'd know that.
I don't know, but they seem to know a lot about the league and all the teams. Stratford, Strathroy. They were alluding about I didn't know anything about this Northern Premier League. You hadn't told me yet, and these guys knew about it. They were, dropping hints about it. But I just found it really interesting because we've been singing the praises, and talent-wise, you cannot find better talent goal-scoring-wise than Brennan Feasy. He's just that good.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because, he wants to be able to get up Monday morning, without any bumps and bruises. It just seems like 2 years in a row against Tillsonburg last year and this year against Strathroy that they ended up not being able to get to the promised land with so much, like they just waltzed through the regular season.
And the thing about this Northern Premier League, people might not know, it's just a rebranding of the Eastern Ontario Super League is what it is. They've changed their name to the Northern Premier League and then added this Metropolitan Division.
Yeah, there's an Eastern Division that is going to happen as well. That announcement will come in. My understanding was 10 teams, 5 in each division. So obviously there's one more team to be added to the I thought it was just going to be called the West, but they call it the Metro, whatever. So that's the only thing that hasn't happened. The other shoe dropping with the Stratford team. And that I cannot help you with. I don't know what the holdup is. I hear rumors, but it's irresponsible for me to start talking like that.
Fair.
Yep.
So I'll keep what I've heard to myself for now. If I hear that is true, I'll share it with the group by all means. At the end of the day, though, clearly there's a following in Stratford. You had 1,000 people out to the game, and there was a good Strathroy contingency, but when we had 1,300 last year for Alvinston, there was at least 400 or 500.
Oh yeah,
Alvinston fans.
They travel well.
They travel so well. They're a crazy bunch. I love them. So I've talked to my source and I said, "What's the hold up?" And he's like, "I got to talk to so and so tonight and just sort a couple of things out." So sounds like there's a couple of logistical issues that still need to be hammered out. And then hopefully the Stratford Fighting Irish will go this way. What I will tell you a couple of rumors that I have heard that sound pretty solid, that Elora and Petrolia are headed back to the OE, which is, for those who don't know, that's the league that's got Tavistock and Ripley and the Minto 81s and a few others. So it sounds like they're headed back there.
And they play for the Allen Cup Championship.
Well, now they
as
play.
well,
Yeah,
right?
and Minto did great. They went right up into the semifinals till they ran into a buzzsaw. And there's a lot of talented players that are playing in that league. And I think it's, I know that the OSHL didn't want any part of it because of the Allen Cup was in a bit of a doldrums. It was the same 4 teams every year, calling it a national championship when it's basically 3 teams from around Hamilton and 1 team from PEI.
Right.
And so this year it was 6 teams, I think.
Yep.
2 teams from out east. And so and Minto showed themselves well. They made it, like I say, to the semifinals and showed that they can compete. So there is chatter as well. And again, I can't confirm this, but there is chatter that the NPHL will apply to send their champion as well.
The release I read said they won't because they're not going to go Hockey Canada route. You have to be Hockey Canada to play for the Allen Cup. So that's just the release.
It'll be interesting. It'll really be.
The other thing is that, sorry, Razor, but
No, go ahead.
Just one last thought there. With Hockey Canada comes access to more officials.
Yep.
And so there's a trade-off there. You also have to pay the freight, and Hockey Canada, doesn't have exactly the best track record.
Right.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you want a true national champion, wouldn't it make sense to include, the new Northern Premier Hockey League champion? I'm just,
if they want to be part of it,
right?
and it's not cheap.
No, and I know, just little bits and pieces when John Kastner was telling me about when Hockey Canada was all over Rotary Y hockey. Because John, I remember telling me he spoke across Canada at the Hockey Canada dinners, and he's part of that organization. And they were saying, how in the hell are you able to keep your costs so low with your Rotary hockey program in Stratford? And he said, because we're not affiliated with Hockey Canada. We're an outlaw league. He said it's strictly house league hockey. I think it was like $250, for registration. I forget what it was, but because they didn't have to pay all the premiums to Hockey Canada, they were able to keep their pricing so low. and I don't know where that went. I know that Hockey Canada was trying to force them to come under their umbrella. I don't know how it all ended up, but
Well, in recent times, Hockey Canada's had bigger fish to fry than Rotary Y Hockey. So,
yeah.
they've had some messes to clean up, some
Yes.
fires to put out. So,
Speaking of that Ripley team, Brian, our favorite goaltender played for them.
he played for
Jonathan.
Mintos.
Yep. Minto.
Yeah.
Jonathan Reinhardt.
Jonathan Reinhardt was playing net for them. And,
was he?
You know what?
He got into a brawl. I saw.
He got into it.
Yep.
There was one guy who was really in his face in that semifinal, and he went at it. But one thing I did notice for all the highlights that I watched on 519, and I saw 3 separate sets of highlights from games, the net never went off once. Funny how that happens, eh?
He's gotten away from it in his older age.
The net never once went off,
Yeah.
which I thought was really cool. So, so this league is happening. Like I said, you've got the Lakers making another reappearance in senior hockey. Who knows how that's going to go? It obviously didn't go very well last time, but maybe they've got better finances going on, better support. I do know that there's going to be some competition in Woodstock because of, and I think I can share the news that the Woodstock Navy vets, there was a rumor going around that they were sold. Truth of it is that apparently they have not been sold, but they are playing elsewhere next season. Have you heard where they're playing?
I have not heard where, but it's close to the Woodstock area.
That's what I'm hearing, is that they're not going to be playing in Woodstock this year, but the Georgetown Raiders of the OJ will be relocating to Woodstock to play there, and that is what you call Tier 2 Junior A. And that'll make one team real happy. Leamington, there's actually one team within 4 hours of them now.
A little closer.
That's a nasty travel league, man. That is not a good league for travel.
Hey, I just want to say one thing. I misspoke with Jeff when we first started off. I was just trying to be humorous, made a stupid comment that Janet wanted him home around the house more. And I just want to apologize to Jeff because it was only I'm trying to make light of missing our buddy, and Jeff, I apologize. That was my intake. They were not Jeff's words; they were my words. So my apologies. People, stop texting Jeff. Janet isn't on his case. I was the idiot who was just making light of the situation.
Janet will be on his case tomorrow night when the Leafs put out the Senators.
I just feel bad because my phone's blowing up with stuff going on. So sorry to interrupt, but
Just a bad joke, folks. Everybody relax.
Bad joke. Yeah, leave Jeff alone. So my apologies, brother.
So just, I guess, to finish that chapter off, so I hope it works out. I hope Stratford ends up in it, and because otherwise I'm going to need a job for next year from my own personal standpoint. But I know I spoke to some of the Fighting Irish players from last season, and one thing that should be noted is that this is not a points league. They won't be limited by the amount of points like they do. For the uninformed, real quick, players are assigned point values based on how far they went, i.e. if you played in the NHL or the AHL, you are 3 points. If you played in the OHL, you're worth 1 point. I won't go into all the specifics, but you can only dress 10 points per game. And so if you dress like a Zach Magwood, who's a 3-point player, you've only got 7 points less to dress. And there were times when a guy like O'Bonnaswain couldn't play because that would have put them over the 10 points. In this new league, from what I'm hearing, there are no point totals, so you can load up with a whole team. If you can talk a team full of Magwoods coming to play for you. So, I mean, the level of hockey is going to be really, really super good. And when you think of a team like Alvinston, they had 22 or 23 points on their roster this past season. So those guys you were talking to, wait till they see Alvinston when they ice 22 points.
Yeah. See, I don't like that. I think the 10 points will be good because you're never going to see, Woodstock or Tilbury be able to compete with the money that's being thrown around.
Well,
right?
hey,
Stratford.
I mean, at the end of the day, why would you enter into a league where there's no point system unless you can afford to
Yeah.
Right.
to
Yep.
pay the guys to play the points.
and attract the talent.
I just think
You know what
I
I mean?
just think
So-
that would I think, and believe me, I love to watch great hockey. I just think that it's a slippery slope because I don't think that it's sustainable where you're going to have somebody with deep pockets, like the rumors going around with Alvinston, where the rich grandfather has left a boatload of money to one of the executive, right? Like, you just cannot compete with that.
Well, they did a lot of smart things with that money, and so now they've got by far the biggest following.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing they need really is a bigger rink.
Yep.
And that's the only thing going against Alberton
Yeah.
is they can only put, what is it, 450?
450.
No, wasn't
500, I think.
Wasn't it you that was telling me? They said at $10 a pop, they had 2,000 people view one of their road games against Strathroy. That's $20,000
Yeah.
that they made just off
No,
viewership.
the $20,000 number I heard was an aggregate total for all the games that they put the
Oh,
paywall up
okay.
for.
Okay, so
And so, Alvinston has a great play-by-play guy in Joel Campbell. I don't know if they're going to hire on a color guy for him. He's been working alone by and large. And like I say, he's great. He's got the voice, you know what I mean? He's got the passion. He's been with the organization for some time. Like I said, the only thing they're missing is a bigger rink. Now, I know they also fill up that bar, Blue Line Club, whatever it is, so they can get more people over there. But, if they had a rink like Tilsonburg, for example, they'd probably fill it. They'd probably fill it on a regular basis.
right.
They have such a following, and they've had a paywall up for a year now, and they've got a regular revenue stream coming from that. So, like I said, I don't know why you would bother going into a league like this unless you were prepared. And I always thought that was a fundamental flaw in the Ontario Super Hockey League. You had teams that were not prepared to lose money. And I mean, a hockey team is a business, and simple economics tells you, and I've owned small businesses, and I did retail for several years. We had a nice business up in Milton that was retail and furniture and all that kind of stuff. And there has to be an expected return on investment. Your ROI, if you open up a restaurant, for example, your ROI is going to be minimum 5 years. So for some reason, there are certain people who run a hockey team thinking they're going to, make money off the first season, and B, they think that, all we got to do is get $500 into seats for every home game, and we'll make money. And you can't operate a team that way. If you're going to start a team up, you have to be prepared to lose money in the first year, the second year, what have you. I mean, look at the NHL. These guys are putting hundreds of millions of dollars in that.
Billions.
Do you think they really expect to make their money back in the first year? It's going to take a decade minimum.
Like, a team now is worth minimum $1 billion.
So it's maybe not a fair comparison, but at the end of the day, the owners better get into this knowing they will probably lose money in the first year. The other thing that I'm concerned about is the broadcasting of these games. Tilbury is renowned for their horrible broadcast because they're using Wi-Fi with wireless cameras that either lag or outright just don't work.
Right.
And part of the reason why I drove down to Tilbury twice during the Stratford series is because you couldn't watch the stream. It was unwatchable. So they're going to have to put an investment, and not a small one. I mean, I could tell you that there were thousands of dollars put into the Stratford stream, including a 4K camera, direct connection to internet, and $300 a pop headphones. I know that the Strathroy one was a little box. Poor Bill Bourne, the play-by-play guy there. I mean, they had a bona fide color guy in Don Massenhoven, former NHL referee, who was willing to work. But it's a little box like this, and he's passing a microphone back and forth in between, charging $10 a pop for the feed. And everybody goes online and goes, the feed is crap, the feed is crap, the feed is crap. Well, yeah, because they didn't spend any money in it. So now that you are getting talent in that's going to cost you some money, you better get your stream up to snuff. I can tell you that we had 3,000 people watching the stream for Game 5. in our series.
I wonder how many for 7.
I don't know. I haven't heard the numbers yet for 7, and frankly, the guy who provided those numbers now is without a league, so I don't think I'll be hearing those numbers anytime soon. Not to mention he and I kind of had it out maybe once or twice. But
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, we know the appetite's there.
Yep.
We know the appetite is there, so you better start investing some money in that stream. Otherwise, it's just going to go right back down the toilet where this league went.
All right. So before we head off to break, let's just wish the Irish one more time. Congratulations on a great 24-25 season. OSHL champions of the Super Cup. I guess that's what
Super
they call
League
it.
Cup, yes.
Super League Cup. Stratford Fighting Irish.
Yeah.
We're going to be right back after this with a word from our sponsors, and we're going to talk 2 best words in hockey. Game 7.
Wayward mind, lovesick blind. Why do I climb these heights for you? Twisted muse always gets my shit confused. What's a man have to prove? Do I have to walk the night for you? Every mountain I've climbed, there's a valley low. For every highway I ride, there's a rocky road. She's got me beat, she's got me broken, right down to my soul. Drunk and young, I asked to walk you home, but an aloof response had me on my own without you. I stumble on all alone with DMVs. Where are you gone? On repeat in my dome, so blue. She's got me beat, she's got me broken, right down to my soul. She's got me beat, she's got me broken, right down to my soul. You pick me up, don't you know you got a hold on me? It brings me down in only ways that you can see. You keep me close, then you go ahead and run from me and hit me up when you're lonesome and need company. Wayward mind, lost it blind. Why do I climb these heights for you? Every mountain I've climbed, there's a valley low. For every highway I ride, there's a rocky road. She's got me beat, she's got me broken, right down to my
Oh, and we're back. I said a game. We did talk about a game 7, but we're going to talk about Lincoln's Chatham Maroons game 7 tomorrow night at the Pyramid Center in St. Mary's. But Razor's got some.
There was a bunch of us that called Game 7.
Yeah.
I'm just going back over my notes. You've got Les calling the Lincolns in 6. I called the Lincolns in 7. Jeff called St. Mary's in 5. You said St. Mary's in 5, Halser. Chess said St. Mary's in 7. And Rhett said St. Mary's in 6. And he was super confident that 6 was stretching it.
Well,
So-
he said 4, but he'll give him 6.
Yeah, exactly.
You've heard of rose-colored glasses? Rhett wears green-colored glasses.
Good old Rhett.
And I gotta give due where the guy has earned it. Les is the only one out of the 6 of us that picked St. Catharines to beat Fort Erie. He had St. Catharines in 7. They did it in 6. The rest of us all had Fort Erie in either 6 or 7 games. So congrats, Les, for being the only smart one and picking St. Catharines. But just want to give a shout out to our amazing sponsors here on the Armchair Chirpers podcast. SBS Metals, metal fabrication with professional craftsmanship. Stratford's preferred custom commercial and residential metal fabricator. See Dennis and Kathy for all your metal needs. Domino's Pizza, official pizza of the Armchair Chirpers. 2 locations at 406 Ontario and 536 Huron Street. Joe's Diner, the official breakfast and lunch diner of the Armchair Chirpers, home of the world-famous No. 4 Perth County breakfast, locally owned and operated by the Myers family. 2 locations in St. Mary's and Stratford. The Urban Barber, the official barber of the Armchair Chirpers, located at 155 Erie Street. Classic cut includes short tapers, grooming, cleanups, and all shaping details. Janet Lange from Home & Company, the official realtor of Armchair Chirpers. She puts the real in real estate. Brighter Vision Counselling, Psychology, and Wellness, providing compassionate and effective counseling services to individuals and families in need. They provide a safe and supportive environment where everyone can heal and grow. And Bentley's Bar, Inn, and Restaurant, the official bar and restaurant of the Chirpers. 20 draft beers on tap, daily food specials, a fabulous place to spend the night in their lofts or executive suite, locally owned and operated by the Bentley family.
Thanks to all those who
Yep.
support the Armchair Chirpers.
Yes, we wouldn't be around without their love and support, so thank you so much.
Yeah, so this Western Conference Championship's going 7 games.
Crazy.
I
Crazy.
saw Dylan Baker had a thing on 519 Sports. St. Mary's took a bus down to the hostile environment.
Saw that.
I talked to Jeff Golsack, one of the directors of the team who works with me, and he said, yeah, you're right. It's a hostile environment down there. I said, I told you so. There might have been a story about a lady and not having her teeth in, her teeth out. I'm not sure. But, cops in the parking lot, stuff like that,
Well, I want to clear something up. First of all, after Game 5 in St. Mary's, the cops were in the parking lot. Was not
No.
for Chatham fans. They were local teens, local meatheads that were going around breaking windows and stealing stuff, not Chatham fans. So let's make sure that everybody understands.
Yeah, I got the lowdown with that this morning as well.
Although they are a pretty crazy bunch. And I will only say this about the Chatham fans. I want you to continue to be boisterous. I want you to continue to cheer your team on. But there are 3 or 4 of you who sit near the Chatham bench. I want you to be aware, I'm being serious here, that there are mothers, grandmothers, little sisters, young kids sitting all around you. So if you wouldn't mind cooling it on the atomic F-bombs and sexual innuendo, it would be greatly appreciated.
There you go.
Stay classy, please. Be as loud as you want.
But keep
Be
it
angry.
classy. That's right.
But let's remember that we are in a family environment. Thank you very much
100%.
for
Well
your
said.
patronage.
Well said.
So where do you want to go? There's been a lot of games since our last podcast. I think it's really been a tale of 2 series.
Yeah.
in this series, because you've got the first part of the series where Chatham dominated, like St. Mary's
game one.
After game
St.
one,
Mary's
'cause-
wins game one handily,
And dominated them.
Yeah.
and then
Right, so
games
well.
2, 3, and 4, all Chatham.
Right. And that I thought was a combination of several things. First of all, we know that the goaltender, Gannon Hunter, can blow very hot and then sometimes kind of cold. But he was definitely, I think they said that he had a .920 save percentage or better in each of games 2, 3, and 4. Playing very well. Let's also keep in mind that the Chatham D-Corps might be the best in the league.
Yeah.
Van Netten,
Gillis,
Gillis, Forte Smith,
Bathick,
Bastick,
Gillen.
the captain,
Gillen.
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 Forte Smith.
What a great skater that kid is.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting
Harding.
the one. And Harding, yes. And they have been fantastic for those 3 games. They were one of the big things that I noticed there, if I really want to, I'm not a big X's and O's guy, but St. Mary's likes to carry the puck in, and that's no secret. And a lot of teams, including Stratford and Listowel, tried to make them dump it in. The difference with a team like Listowel is that they don't have a real mobile D-Corps, so that St. Mary's said, fine, we'll dump it in, and we will blast in there, and we will get to the puck before you anyway, and then cause havoc down low because we know how St. Mary's has that deadly forecheck. The difference in this series is that Chatham's D-Corps are mobile, and they're good on the first pass.
And they activate a lot.
And so it was very difficult for them to get over the blue line with the puck, and then it was difficult for them to dump it in and retrieve the puck due to the nice play by the Chatham team. We all know they're loaded up front, Chatham. Probably the second deepest team up front next to St. Mary's. They've got their top end. Dylan Richter is probably the best player in this series.
He's so good.
Oh, man, he's unbelievable. And he played the first half of the series basically with one arm, I thought anyways. And on top of that, you've got injuries and a short D-Corps for St. Mary's that was finally starting to catch up on them. They lost Barch early in the season. They lost Livermore in Game 4 of the London series. And so now you're down to basically 4 healthy D that they're dressing regularly. I've been very impressed by this Coward kid from Exeter that they called up from Junior D. And playing McPherson. And McPherson is going to be a very good player in this league. He's a great skater, but he seemed like the moment was a little big for him. And so with that set of forwards and that depleted D-Corps, that was really an adjustment. So that's how I think how Chatham got up 3-1. For some reason, St. Mary's suddenly scored 1 goal in Game 3 and 1 goal in Game 4 and only had 1 goal through 2 periods in Game 5. And then all of a sudden,
St. Mary's
Like,
woke up.
Like, what was interesting, though, like, we were at the game, Game 3, and it wasn't like as if Armelin played bad. Like, the last goal.
he was left all alone in the second period.
The fourth one scored by Hunt. But, yeah, let's start with St. Mary's is on the power play in Game 3.
Let's talk about that.
How many times do you see a power play give up a 2-on-0, a breakaway, and a 2-on-1?
On the same shift.
Yes.
Yeah.
The same 2-minute
And
penalty.
The thing about that, Chatham had those, but they really didn't get quality shots.
They didn't.
Oh,
they
did.
fumbled it.
I know the 2-on-0.
Spencer was going wild. I heard a replay of Spencer. He was going wild saying Armelin made this, but
He did.
honestly, Chatham fumbled the puck more than anything.
On the 2-on-0, they
Yeah.
made too many passes,
passes,
and they didn't even get a real
Right.
good shot
The puck
off.
just kind of.
The breakaway, I think it was Richter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And he went, faked his forehand, went to backhand, and it rolled off his stick. Now, give Armelin credit. Like, he
was there.
played it
Yes.
well, but the puck rolled off Richter's
It
blade.
could very well have been 6-1 after 2.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I was talking to other fans, and including Chess, and I think there was an agreement that the second period of Game 3 was maybe the worst period that St. Mary's played all year.
Yeah.
Nobody could think of a time where they played worse.
I agree.
And then St. Mary's took some poor choices in the way they played the game. A few players ejected from the game.
Well, and that was terrible because that was I had in my notes the mayhem the goalie hit. Hunter comes out to play the puck, and you've got Bidgood going for the puck. He wasn't going to hit Hunter. He's already got a direct line to the puck, and Hunter comes out. Now, you guys corrected me on it because I said that shouldn't be a penalty because he was going for the puck, and Hunter got in Bidgood's way. You guys corrected me and said it doesn't matter what the intent was. If you make contact with the goalie, it was like that women's game with
gold
Canada,
medal game.
gold medal, and the American. That was not the Canadians'
I
fault.
also, that was terrible. That American goaltender
Right?
jumped right in
It
that
comes
girl's
out.
way.
She gets in her way. Canada gets the penalty because you made contact with the goalie. So I think it's a terrible.
And they scored on that power play.
Right.
It cost them the
Exactly.
game.
But it's the way the rule reads. It's the skater that is obligated to make every effort to miss the goaltender
Like
at
you
all
practically
times.
Exactly.
have to superhuman your way out of
Yeah.
the goalie's
And,
way.
and you've talked about it. If there's ever a scrum or a pile, Bidgood's at the bottom of it. But you cannot blame the poor kid for anything. All he was doing was going for the puck.
Yeah.
Never veered from his path because it was right in front of us. And it was Hunter that got into Bidgood's path, and he gets penalized on it. But
I will say this: Bidgood is the type of player where if you get into his path, he will not break
Fair.
a leg
Fair.
trying to get out of your path.
no, but he was going for the puck. There was no ands,
Yeah,
ifs,
I
or.
agree.
It was Hunter that got into his path, and then he made contact
But
with
boy,
him.
is he public enemy number one in Chatham now.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you what, those fans in Game 5 were on him, and I could hear them over the broadcast in Game 6. I heard his name yelled dozens and dozens of times. Like they're like this. Keeping in mind, this kid's like 17.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they're on him like he's an NHL player. My goodness, they're nasty to him.
Yeah, he's the
Public
pride of
enemy number
Peterborough, Ontario. 07. Yeah, so he's.
Yeah, so
Now-
I don't know what his birth month is, but he may not even be 18
I
yet.
think it's
So St. Mary's lost 2 players from that game. correct?
January. Yeah, he is
yeah.
18. He's a
Yeah,
January.
so he just turned 18. So yeah, Cornfield out for, I think he got 5.
Yeah.
For something he said that he shouldn't be saying to people. Nobody knows what he said. Somebody knows what he said. It was heard by the linesman. You knew there was a problem because they stopped the game before a face-off.
And the linesman right over to the referee's ear.
Yeah, and
Then the other referee, and right when they tack on that discrimination slur, it's automatic. You get a hearing and everything, but it's 4 or more.
So
Wow.
and then I thought it was definitely a penalty, but I don't know if I would have. Like Coop's got 2 games
Yeah.
for a head contact major penalty.
Yeah.
There was another head contact play on a hit on Lee that didn't even get a major, let alone a game misconduct. So, anyways, that's junior hockey. When you put yourself into situations like that, you allow yourself to be judged by others. And so he was missing for Game 4 up in Chatham, and was missing for Game 5 back in St. Mary's. But then all of a sudden, and it was a really tense. I thought Stratford, St. Mary's came out in the first period of Game 5 and played the best period they played in 2 or 3 games. They didn't play quite as well in the second period, and yet still scored and tied the game up. And then switch.
Yep.
All of a sudden, they just went off, and it was that first goal, and I think it was Kelp got the goal.
Voortman in Game 5.
The second goal, like the first goal of the third period, the one that gave.
Oh,
them the
it
2-1
was
lead.
Kelp. Yeah,
Kelp
Voortman had
on
the first goal for them in the second period to make it 1-1.
Yep. And then Kelp got one, and then Spagnolo got 2 in a row.
He got 2, and then Moore.
Yep, and that was. I remember leaving the rink after Game 5. Watch out, because Spagnolo broke out of his slump. Moore broke out of his slump, and even though it was a nothing meaningless goal, the fact that it was the goal itself, he didn't get credit for the second one. I think it bounced in off of Hodgkinson.
Okay.
But both goals were the same thing, where he was set up around the dot on the right-hand side, a left shot, and he zinged one up into the top corner for his goal, and probably would have done the same thing, except Hodgkinson doing his thing and standing in front of the net, and I think it bounced in off of him. They gave him credit for it.
The Lincoln's line of Voortman, Spagnolo, and Lee had a goal and 2 points in the first 4 games of the series. They exploded for 11 points in Game 5.
And Voortman had 5 of them.
Voortman had 5. He had a goal and 4 assists. Spags had 3 points. He had 2 goals and a helper. and then Lee had 3 helpers. So that line, I think there's two things that really changed the series. In Game 3, where Armelin didn't have a terrible game, but didn't have his best game. And Coach Bradley thought, I got to make a change here. We're down 2-1 now. So he puts Buthausko in. So that's the first thing that changed. Then you've got, I thought, it's a 1-0 game. In Game 5, you've got Chatham, who's up in the series 3-1. They're up 1-0 in the game. And then you get Kucher from Chatham, who gets a head contact. So he gets a 2 and a 10 and puts St. Mary's on the power play. And that's where Voortman started the goal scoring. So he scores to make it 1-1 on the power play. And I think that just changed everything, because then in the third, it was all St. Mary's. They found their mojo. So you've got the goalie change, you've got the head shot, and St. Mary's just came to life in Game 5 and has flipped the switch now, where now you've got the pressure on Chatham, who had this thing locked at 3-1 just a few nights ago. And St. Mary's, after Game 4, would have gladly have taken this scenario. And they've already proven it once against London.
Well, what a reversal, right? I mean, they were up 3-0 and blew the 3-0 lead and won in Game 7. Now they're down 3-1 and come back and force a Game 7.
Right.
I agree with you. I think there was some really great points, because I mentioned off air there was a stretch, the third period of Game 5 and the first 2 periods of Game 6, where St. Mary's outscored Chatham 10-0.
Yeah.
And the third period was inconsequential because it was a 5-goal lead. Ended up 6-2, I believe.
Yeah, 6-2.
And so,
but how big was Lincoln Moore's shorty in Game 6, right?
Yep.
He comes out of the penalty box and scores on Hunter.
Yep.
And
because that was off a 5-on-3,
right?
Yeah.
And he comes out from a 5-on-3. I didn't see who the D was or the forward, whoever the St. Mary's player was that caused the turnover with a good stick.
Yeah,
and loosed that puck, and then Moore just picked it up and took off and made a nice forehand backhand deke move to score. And that's, like I said, that's what I was thinking leaving the rink after Game 5, going, look out, because both Moore and Spagnolo have broken out. And that's bad news for you. If they got 3 lines, that second line, and I laying in a lot of this on them. And now that they're playing better, I'll say it. McQueen Spence, Moore, and Morey have looked downright awful at times defensively, and they're not getting a sustained pressure. And how is Chase McQueen Spence, the defending Western Conference playoff MVP from a year ago, how is it he goes 17 games without a goal? And finally, he scored last night in Game 6.
Yeah.
And watch out now. Same thing. When there's one, quite often there's a few. And it's, having said that, we could be saying all this, and then Chatham could come in and play a good road game. Hunter plays the way he played during 2, 3, and 4, and they win the game 2-1. But I think the magic number for St. Mary's, I think if they score 3 goals, they'll win the hockey game.
Well, after Moore scores his, then you get Morey at 16:31 of the first, and then Lee chased Hunter out, and they put de Blasi in.
Yeah, it was a bit of softy, the third one, I thought.
And Hunt was off for roughing, and so you give up a shorty and a power play goal in a game that they were not wanting to come back to St. Mary's. So now you're down 3-0 after 1, and it just got worse in the second period, where you get McClellan a minute 58, and then, like you said, McQueen Spence gets his first of the season to make it 5-0. It was pretty much over come the third period.
Yeah.
You get Truby and Hunt scoring. Yeah. Hodkinson scored as well. But
there was about 5 seconds of possibility for Chatham because they scored in the first minute of the third period to make it 5-1. But then, they just grounded out for the next 5 minutes,
You get Buthausko with a .935 save percentage in Game 6. But Hunter and de Blasi, Hunter was .813. De Blasi wasn't much better at .842. So now you've got a situation, because you've got 2 good goalies in St. Mary's, where you can go with either one. Obviously, it's Buthausko for Game 7.
I think that's pretty obvious, yeah.
Right? And
I know where you're going with this, and I don't think there's any thought.
it's going to be Hunter.
Yeah,
it's obviously.
Let's
it's
go
obviously
back to
Hunter.
Gannon Hunter, but
Now it's on him.
But the equalizing factor here is Game 7.
It's Game 7, and you're right, Halser. Anything could go. If Chatham comes out and gets a quick first goal and quiets the crowd, textbook, the way they want to do it, it's going to be really, really important who gets that first goal, right? Because the crowd's either going to be, quiet as a mouse or like crazy as you've
Well, I
never
will say
heard.
I've never seen a St. Mary's crowd quiet as a mouse. I understand where you're going with that for sure. And for me, I think the key for Chatham is that decor. I think they have to play a flawless game to keep St. Mary's under 3 goals. Because Booth Housego, I've seen him play like this before, and he's going to be – one thing that I will guarantee you is that Booth Housego will play well tomorrow night.
Yeah, and
when he's playing well, he's really tough to
I think Chatham needs to survive the first 10 minutes of period 1. They get through the first 10 minutes of period 1. Maybe if they get the first goal in the first 10 minutes, it'll be a great game.
Like, you just want to see both goalies play well. You don't want to.
I want a nice close game.
Exactly.
Really, no. I'm with
Says no Lincoln fan ever.
From a fan's perspective, I just like to see Hunter
I'm okay
and
with that
Housego
5-0 lead after two.
play the way that they both can, right? Like, you don't want to see, an important game like that decided because of, crappy goals. At least I don't. But that being said, I think, folks, get your popcorn ready because Gannon Hunter is a tale of 2 goalies.
Yep.
There's Gannon A and Gannon B. And hopefully B shows up.
And the only thing I can guarantee you is somebody's going to hoist the Joe Thornton Western Conference Championship Cup
For the first time.
for the first time.
that's going to be exciting.
And the other thing we can guarantee him is that they're going to play the St. Catharines Falcons, and I'm surprised by that, and I'm not surprised by that all at the same time.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
Well, I mean, they were the first place team all year long.
Yep.
They are possibly the biggest junior B team I've seen in a generation.
yeah.
They have a fantastic goaltender. They have
John Lloyd.
No, that's it. Fort Erie's.
Oh,
coach.
sorry,
It's-
Hayden
it's
Jeffries.
They have Duplessis, and they
Yep.
have the captain
Cam Lowe.
who I think has won the MVP for the Eastern
He
Conference
did.
playoffs.
Yep.
Who has had a marvelous playoff. Their decor are solid. They move the puck well. They aren't the quickest team, but to be honest with you, it's an interesting thing. If it's Chatham, they're a big team that likes to play big, and that's going to be a real physical series. But St. Mary's is very much a contrast to St. Catharines.
Yep.
They will play physical, but they're not a big team. And so that I remember watching, going to Ayr and watching on a Thursday night and watching St. Catharines play Ayr and getting my first full look at St. Catharines, and was so impressed by them. Other than I got to say, guys, you could use a rebrand on the uniforms. I know they're traditional, but
They still look like pajamas.
they still look like candy stripers, to be honest with you. So that's a real interesting matchup. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but at the end of the day, that finals, if it's St. Mary's tomorrow night, that final will almost assuredly start Friday night in St. Mary's. If it is Chatham, then it will start in
St.
Catharines. So I believe, anyway, I'll have to double check the point totals.
Yeah.
Because Chatham was second, but St. Mary's was so far ahead of everybody. I don't know if Chatham had more points than St. Catharines, or whether position in the conference.
I think position in the
Like
conference.
they finished first, but Chatham may have had more points.
They
than
might
did in
have.
the regular season. Chess fact checked opportunity. Let us know.
Well, what was interesting is it sounds like Hayden Jeffrey outplayed John Lloyd. And
Yeah,
you've got the
that's-
Falcons GM, Zach Schipper, that said goalie Hayden Jeffrey was unbelievable. He's the backbone of our team. The Falcons were outshot in all 4 of their wins in the series.
Check.
And they said that the Falcons had, on the power play, they were 8 for 22, running at 36%. And the Meteors were only 4 for 19 for 21%. So when you've got a hot goalie and a hot power play, those are 2 deadly things.
Definitely.
Chatham had 75 points.
Yeah, see, they had more points
St.
than St.
Catharines
Catharines,
did.
so they might get home ice there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the go rule exactly. The other thing I want to say about that series is that I thought it was over. it was 2-1 Fort Erie. It was 3-1 Fort Erie in Game 4 after the first period. And it looked like it was over. It looked like Fort Erie was going to do it. And then 3 unanswered goals in the third period for St. Catharines. And they come back and win 5-3. And they didn't lose after that.
No.
And so, kudos to the Falcons. Like I said, I am surprised and not surprised. They were probably, I thought, the best regular season team in the Eastern Conference, albeit, a 3-way tie. When you look at the season standings for the East, it was a 3-way tie with Ayr and Fort Erie. Fort Erie has the better pedigree, playoff history. They were in the Southey round robin last year.
Yeah.
But having said that, that is now the 30. I mean, they won. I mentioned that last week. 30 Golden Horseshoe championships for the St. Catharines Falcons.
They're like the Culleton's Warriors of the
I mean,
Midwest.
I'm not sure Stratford's got 30
You're probably
Midwestern championships. Because
St. Catharines, they don't ever retool. They just
reload,
right?
reload,
So and they've got a good mix of youth and veterans. Like I said, they're the biggest team in the league, the biggest team I saw all year.
and they got a
so-
partnership with the Ice Dogs too,
And
so that doesn't hurt.
whoever wins tomorrow night is going to absolutely have their hands full playing that St. Catharines team. My only regret is it's not Ayr from a geographic standpoint, because I don't really feel like driving to St. Catharines for a game, especially a midweek one. It would have been nice to drive to Ayr 40 minutes away.
Right.
But I tell you what, man, tomorrow night's going to be electric. Just another huge night at the PRC for that organization that is just building a real resume of huge nights over the last 3 or 4 years in St. Mary's.
Well, the top 5 players for St. Catharines that are sitting at home waiting and watching Game 7, you got Cam Lowe, who, like you said, was the Eastern Conference MVP. He's leading the league in scoring at 24 points. Nathan Duplessis, he's another 20-year-old. He's got 20 points. Brendan Grenville, he has 18. And then you got rookie Ali Mustafi with 14 points. And then their top defenseman, Dallas Hibbert, who has 12 points. And he's got a power play goal and 6 power play assists. So everything seems to be coming through Hibbert on the power play. And then, of course, you can't forget Hayden Jeffrey, who's 12-3 in the playoffs. 2.01 goals against with a .931 save
When he's
percentage.
such a big kid. I mean, a lot of times you look at him in the net and you go, where the heck am I supposed to shoot this now?
Yeah.
I don't see any net behind him.
So tomorrow night is a huge game. For the people out there who don't know, Brian literally ran in to get on the show to start this because he was getting the Chirpers tickets for tomorrow night.
And it was a gong show up there because that's also the biggest voting station in St. Mary's.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
So it's, I ran into Brandon Boyd, team president, right inside the door. And I'm like, where do I go, man? I got no time. Sorry, I would love to have a chat, but I got no time because, I had other priorities before I even got out of bed, to be honest with you.
We forgot to mention Brian, proud grandpappy number 2.
Again.
Thanks, guys.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce to the world sweet Lillian Erica Hawley, born Thursday afternoon, 8 pounds, 4 ounces, 21 inches long. We make them big in my family.
She's going to be a basketball player.
Her dad joked she's got Holly feet and with these long toes to the point where her dad joked that she's got tingers.
Tinkers.
Tingers.
Toes so long they look like fingers.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I am proud to say that I got my first chance to go and just hang out with her. Also, if I'm taking this opportunity for self-serving family notifications, today is my first granddaughter's 2nd birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Lila Jane.
Happy birthday,
And,
Lila.
so she's 2 years old today, and I got some nice pictures that I'll be obviously showing everybody who does or does not want to look at them of the 3 of us in a chair for the first time. And so, yeah, so I'll try not to ramble. You've been told many times, get Holly talking about his family at your peril. You'll have to muzzle him to shut him up.
It's all good. It's all good.
So, yeah, shout out to Mom Kenzie, who's a trooper and is recovering nicely at home with the family, and my son Eric, who's off for 2 or 3 weeks to share in this most valuable time. So thanks for pointing that out. I appreciate it.
All right. So remember that Game 7 tomorrow night in St. Mary's, Chatham Maroons, St. Mary's, Lincoln, 7:30 start time. If you can't
Standing
be there,
remotely.
St. Mary's Radio, Spencer Seymour, or Flo, Spencer Seymour. Be doing the play-by-play. I'm sure all the guys from 519 will be there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
It's big
surprised
game
to see
7.
Dylan Baker showing up there as well.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, no matter how the game goes, you can bet Spencer will be over the top
Oh, yeah.
because he gets excited, man.
He
loves
gets
his
fired
Lincoln.
up.
He
Yeah, he
loves his
sure
Lincolns.
does.
Well, we got a little time, so let's
Get into the NHL.
Is the NHL still going?
NHL's still going.
Oh my!
Some
There's
wild
experiences going on.
I think we got to start with Montreal and what happened in Game 3 there.
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
Okay, my first question is, how did all the players get on the ice? Like that.
You know what? That was one we haven't seen in a very, very long time.
I have not seen that.
When was the last time you saw a fight on the bench?
Yeah.
You know,
Not
that
very
was, that
Well,
was, I was
Darcy Tucker.
Well, I was actually half expecting Terry O'Reilly to start, you know,
Going
maybe,
to the stands.
maybe Mike Milbury throwing a shoe, if you're old enough to remember such things. But
Because the last time I saw a fight in the bench was Darcy Tucker going after Chris Neal on the bench in Ottawa.
and that was the intensity. Like I tell you what, Montreal, you know, take a bow because the atmosphere inside the Bell Center for
It's
games
electric.
3 and 4 was absolutely awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah. And the great thing about those Habs fans is they are so boisterous. Like they are like just so passionate about their about their team. And I think Anderson was not. I'm pretty sure Anderson was not expecting the result that he got when he got involved with Wilson. Like he
Yeah.
was just trying to help out. Who was
Tom
it?
Wilson is the
It was the X guy, wasn't it?
Yeah. How do you say
Jack
it?
Guy.
Jack Guy. Yeah, he was.
Or Jack Guy. Tom Wilson is the epitome of a power forward
Oh,
that can score.
he's so good. So
He
good.
is playing outstanding hockey, and if he's not worked his way onto the Olympic roster yet,
Well,
but
they wonder if
because of
there's
the
a
style,
role.
because of the style of game they might play over there in the Olympics, he might not make it. But
I think
My
they will. I
God.
think after the lesson they learned with the Four Nations, where you had the Tkachuk brothers wanting to mix it up,
Well,
if Tom Wilson was on the ice,
that hit he threw in Game 4,
yeah,
I don't want to hear another Habs fan say that was a dirty hit, because that is far from a dirty hit. That was a clean body check. It's not our fault. He just about threw the kid through
right,
the ice.
yeah.
How good would Tom Wilson have been in the 80s or 90s?
Oh man,
Like he would have been, you know, he's a guy that
he'd be
you
like
line-
a Clark Gillies.
Well,
Like,
you
just
line.
a
I was
guy.
going to say you put him on a line with Clark Gillies and almost any Sutter, brother.
Right.
And that is your third line going into Canada Cup competition.
Cam
Yep.
Neely, you know,
Yeah.
just those sort of guys.
Back to Game 3, though. Like, my son's texting me. He just says, "Dad, you see what's happening in this game?" And I said, "Yeah, this is as close you're going to get to a bench clearing brawl as you've ever seen in your lifetime."
Yeah, yeah, they just don't happen anymore.
Yeah.
No.
And it was just weird. And everybody got fined. They got.
I give
admonished.
Wilson credit. Wilson could have really got loose there.
I
and
think they all had in the
stupid.
back of their mind, I'm about one, punch away from a 5-game suspension.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so cooler heads prevailed,
Yeah.
but
Unfortunately,
It-
because
it-
let's face it, we all wanted that. I think especially I can only speak from a from a viewpoint of I got no dog in this fight.
sure.
You know, a neutral observer, if you will. I really was hoping
It was-
hell was going to break
Well,
loose.
you knew that Anderson wasn't going to instigate it. Like, if it was Jack Guy,
Yeah.
he would have, gladly gone toe to toe with Wilson.
Oh, that's a fair trade. He
But
loves that
Wilson-
trade, right?
Yeah, but Wilson, focused on Anderson for
Well, no,
getting
Wilson
involved.
went after Jack Guy first, and then
right.
Anderson inserted
came in.
himself in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But once he saw Anderson sticking his nose in
Yeah.
when he shouldn't have, that's when he started focusing on Anderson and chased him down the bench. Like Anderson, you watch him, he's backing up and almost ran into Washington's coach. He had
Spencer,
to get out. He had to get out of the
And
way.
I also loved Elliot Friedman's take on it later on, where he picked up a bunch of highlights about how this was brewing.
Yeah.
And he picked up on all
Yeah.
the little details about how that ended up pretty much exactly as the details and events occurred would suggest. And so I thought a great job by Elliot to pick up on all that stuff.
Well, yeah,
That's why he
Jack
makes
he got
bucks, right?
fined for the pregame stuff. Like,
Well, no, that was game 4.
oh, was that? Yeah.
Game 4 of the pregame stuff
Right.
where the fines came out.
Yeah.
We saw the same thing in the Toronto-Ottawa series. Fines for pregame shenanigans.
Shooting the puck
the
at
league wants
Stollards.
nothing to do with that
Fair.
because it's a black eye on the league.
Well, because it just instigates tempers to flare during the game. If you're letting it go in the warm-ups, then it's going to probably carry over into the game. So they want to, nip that in the butt. I get that. So the interesting, you've got Washington with a stranglehold 3-1 lead on Montreal.
And I think they've really made a statement
Yes.
to everybody who didn't think. Because I remember saying in our preview show, Montreal's a sexy pick here. Take the number 1 seed out.
Yep.
They don't have the experience. They don't have this or that.
They're playing with house money, right?
But no, I mean like Washington didn't have Logan Thompson doesn't have playoff experience or what have you. But I think other than game 3 where he looked very average.
Well, Thompson came back in game 4, did he
Yes.
not? Yeah.
They played game 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was the other thing going on is that both goalies
Yeah, him and Montembeault.
injured.
Ottawa was hurt. Yep. He was out.
We almost got a Zamboni driver playing in a playoff game at one point. Like that's been
Actually,
that's been a great series
Yeah.
for a first round 1-8. That's been a
In
lot.
the playoffs, you can carry that third goalie.
So I mean, the guy, you don't play much when you're wearing number 96 as a goalie. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like that. Is that your name? Like what's with that? So anyway, that
What,
was a lot of fun.
another series that's really getting interesting is Tampa, Florida.
Oh.
Florida's still up 2-1 game 4.
Home team winless through 3 games.
And teams that do not like each other.
You can
What?
tell.
Hagel gets suspended for that hit on Barkov.
Yeah,
And he's back next game.
and I thought
He's
that was
back.
fair. I thought he.
One game was fair. Yep.
And Chuck doesn't
Yeah.
get suspended for his hit on Gunsel.
Because that I thought was that's a I hate that hit.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a chicken shit hit. It
Yep.
really is.
It was basically just a repayment for
you're
the hit on
hitting
Barkov.
to injure there. I mean, we all hit to hurt.
Yeah.
But that was cheap. The puck was 20 feet gone, long gone. I didn't like.
Now,
it.
are you talking Barkovs?
No,
or
I'm talking about
Gunsel's?
the Gunsel hit.
Yeah.
And that is a predatorial hit where you are clearly trying to take a guy out of the series, and you didn't even do it while he was somewhere near the puck. I thought it was. I hated that hit.
And if he gets suspended, everybody says, "Well, we already have precedents," but they don't do anything. That's
But
the
they
problem.
were-
They
You
said
can't-
they said the difference was Hagel hit Barkov in the head when he hit him. When he they're
I get it. I get what
Okay.
they're saying, but like I said, is that the hit you want in the game?
exactly.
When a guy lets go of the puck and 2 seconds later some guy drops him because I tell you what, Tkachuk didn't hit him in the head, but his hit resulted in his head slamming on the ice.
right.
Yep.
So what's the difference
Yeah.
there? I don't.
Well, I just don't understand the NHL because you got that series, and then you go to Toronto-Ottawa series in overtime. Tavares gets hit with a shoulder to the head,
Right.
and no call whatsoever. You
Well, I
know?
will say this: the defenseman was standing still. He leaned into him like an illegal pick.
Yeah, but still,
So,
the principal contact was the head. But
Yeah,
And that
fair.
was, like I said, he was just standing there, and
Yeah.
he went in and
Yep.
he just leaned into him, and that's a different animal altogether.
Oh, it
than
is.
what Tkachuk
Yep.
did. You could call a penalty there,
yes,
but I don't think we're in anywhere near the same boat as
No,
the Tkachuk hit.
no, not at all. But how about the OT scoring? It's not the big guys. You've got Domi and Benoit
and that's
scoring the
that's- you
2
love
OT
that.
goals, right?
Who had the Ottawa goal? Was that Sanderson?
That was Sanderson.
Sanderson scores that
I
one.
tell you what,
Fluke goal
who's had a bigger coming out party
than Sanderson.
than Jeff Sanderson? Is
Yeah.
it Jeff Sanderson?
No, his father is Jeff
His
Sanderson.
father's Jeff Sanderson.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think I watched this guy for 5 minutes all year long.
Yep.
Obviously Ottawa doesn't make it onto my radar very much, but I tell you what, man, this kid is as impressive as Hudson's been. Sanderson, I think, is equally impressive. He's playing huge minutes in his first playoff, and he is letting the league know that he's going to be a number 1 defenseman in the NHL for a long time.
Now, another player that's playing well is Matthew Nyes.
Oh my god.
That
Yeah,
breakaway
the-
goal he scored.
That was a beauty. and
Wow.
He better be careful. He's going to price himself right out of the market.
He is. Like he's playing that good
Well,
that they can't
They're going to have to sign him before July 1st or he'll get offer sheeted.
for sure.
For
He
sure.
is a
For
restricted.
sure. He's probably looking he's played himself to an $8 million contract.
Yep.
So
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I won't.
I still think he's 6.5 over 8.
So
But
I
I
guess
don't
it.
know.
We've had the conversation many times, and I don't really want to get back into it. But I guess whatever Toronto's going to do in
Yeah.
the future depends entirely on how much they give Tavares.
That's right.
100%.
So
Yeah, they
but,
got to deal
uh,
with him.
That's a
That-
close series, though.
where you've got the opposite of the Battle of Florida, where nobody's won at home.
Yeah.
You've got the Winnipeg St.
Oh.
Louis series,
Oh my god.
where the home team wins all the time and comfortably most of the time.
Yeah.
Other than the 2-1
Well-
win in game 2. I mean, let's face it, Winnipeg went in there and got bitch slapped
Yeah.
for 2 games.
Yeah.
12 goals.
Yeah.
And it's not all Hellebuck's fault. Like their shots from the point that he's being screened on. It's yeah, okay, he's getting lit up for 5-6 goals and then they're yanking him. But they're not good goals. It's not like as if he's seeing it clearly and he's just misplaying it. Like I feel bad for Hellebuck because everyone is all over him. You know, you've got the St. Louis fans chanting his name. He does not forget what happened in the championship game of the Four Nations. Like this guy is going to win the Vezina hands down, and yet he's being dragged through the mud because it's just bad luck. It's bad luck that these goals are seeing eyes
Yep.
coming in from the point.
Well, and then you got another Homer series going on, LA and Edmonton.
Oh,
I tell you what, I went to bed and left Edmonton for dead last
yeah. I did
can't-
too.
I got up this morning and went,
Yep.
know,
They
I
came
said
back.
the same thing. Yep.
they won that game? How did they win that
Bouchard.
game?
Bouchard.
How can you give up so many goals and then become the hero all in the same breath? Like
And
it's
scored both of the
it's unbelievable.
Yep.
The first one was fluky, but that second one was a rocket
was not
stick
a fluke,
side. No,
absolutely, yeah.
but
Drysdale had a couple chances there too, and you just
it's
Ugh.
it's just unbelievable because after I think it was the third goal and they showed McDavid going to the bench and he was I'm not going to say that he was shaking his head at the goalies, but he's frustrated. Like here we are working our asses off. Just make a save, right? Like he was so
All
frustrated.
you've ever asked is make the saves you're supposed to make.
Right.
If you make
Well-
one you're not supposed to make, I'll come over and be the first guy to give you a stick
Exactly.
the meme I saw after that second game for Skinner was they found his weakness to shoot the puck at the net.
tap. Like that old Alan Bester line where he
Yeah.
felt so bad about giving up that late goal. He jumped in front of a bus. As luck would have it, it went through his legs too.
And
Alan Bester, all 5'8" of them.
Yep.
So
it's just wild playoff hockey.
it is.
And it was
Dallas,
just the first round.
Dallas, Colorado. They're 2-2. Like, is that must see watch?
Oh, I tell you what, then I knew going in, if I only had time to watch one series,
Yeah.
I was going to be watching Dallas and Colorado. But just a complete victory for Colorado.
Oh yeah. Landeskog scoring his first goal.
But that was all. I mean, they were 22-5 in the second period were the shots.
Yeah, all over him.
I mean, they looked so good in Game 4, and I don't know how Dallas is going to respond, but they're a resilient bunch.
They
Those
need
Stars.
some big games out of Ottinger, right?
They need.
And-
Well, he was in a position to steal one, but they couldn't score.
Yeah.
I mean, when you only get, they get 19 shots?
yeah.
They got badly outplayed in Game 4.
Yeah.
So,
And then
um,
and then you got the Carolina Jersey series now where Anderson was knocked out of the game yesterday on a
Yeah.
hit.
And it wasn't like a violent
No.
hit. Like the guy is a walking band, right? Like that's I've never been a Freddie Anderson fan, and it's just awful. Like you look at the hit that the two goalies took in the Washington-Montreal game. Like those were big hits. Like even Kemper in the Edmonton series, right? Like he's taken some big hits. Like Anderson did not. To me, it just I don't know if he fell awkwardly or what, but man, oh man, it looked like the wind blew him over, and now he's out. It seems like he's out, but you've got Carolina up 3-1 there, so they're in the driver's seat. The only one that we haven't talked about is Vegas and Minnesota. Like,
And they're 2-2.
and
know?
kudos to Minnesota, and I felt bad for
Middleton.
Middleton,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
kind of whiffed on a clearing pass,
Right.
there, who's played really
Phenomenal
well.
hockey.
Really
Done-
good.
Done yeoman's work
Yep.
defensively for the team, and just you hate being that guy, right?
Exactly.
So, but we know he'll bounce back. He's a character guy, and he'll play well the rest of the way. And talk about living on house money. Nobody's expecting Minnesota to beat Vegas.
Nobody.
Vegas is a team that a lot of teams are saying is going to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
As soon as they get out of this annoyance called the Minnesota Wild. But let's everybody remember that Minnesota was one of the best teams in the league for the first 3 months of the season
Yep.
until injuries started hitting them.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's so hard to make up any ground in this league with their dumb point system. Minnesota is still a bona fide playoff team, and, they may have something to say about this before the series is over.
Well, we got all the hockey in. It's just a good thing we're running out of time because I really don't want to talk about the Blue Jays because they're just brutal.
They're on a bit of a slump right now.
Well, I want to give a shout out to Gary Broadhagen, who is always very kind. He said on our YouTube group chat, that was a great summary and wrap up of the Fight in Irish season, guys. Very well done, and thanks for what you do. Can't wait to see what the future holds for this team of ours. So, Gary, thanks so much. Chess, as always, thank you for chiming in and watching us. And
one other thing we forgot to mention, Mike Sullivan is out of a job in Pittsburgh.
right, yeah, he was let
They
go.
parted ways today.
That was
Yeah,
that was
you
an
have to
awkward.
talk to whether it was
Mutual
quitting
Well, they
or-
said it was mutual, but then you've got Dubas saying that he phoned Sid to tell him that he was letting go the coach, and then the press were all over. I don't know if you guys saw the press conference or not, but Dubas was pissed off at the questioning that he was getting. He's going, so, like, why don't you just say that you fired him? You called Sid, and it's interesting, Sullivan's Dubas's
I
response.
can't imagine anybody questioning what Dubas does
Yeah. Right?
Dumbass. Dubas. Yeah, you're right.
because he had such a successful run in his previous.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But in the end, what a wonderful weekend it was for me personally. It started off Thursday with a new grandbaby, and then Lynx win Friday, and Irish win Saturday, and Lynx win again Sunday.
Right.
So
And it's just been some great hockey to watch.
I was joking to my boss. Most people work for the week and get their rest on the weekend. I got to go in Monday and get my rest from the weekend.
Right.
That's about it. Yep.
No, it's great. Good luck to the Lincolns
Yep.
tomorrow night, Game 7. The Armchair Chirpers will be there supporting you guys. So good luck, Chess, Rhett. We'll see you guys there.
Yeah, Rhett, make sure you're on time.
And go before you leave home so you don't miss a goal. In that bus.
Make sure that air compressor's ready to go. Hopefully you got to use a lot of it.
All right. Remember, it's okay not to be okay. Just start the conversation.
Peace out.
Peace.